Have you ever felt like a literal passenger in your own body?
Oh, absolutely.
You know that feeling, right? You're having a completely ordinary day, everything is totally fine, and then out of absolutely nowhere, a wave of anxiety just crashes over you.
Yeah, or like a sudden, just suffocating bad mood drops from the ceiling.
Exactly. And suddenly your entire day is just hijacked. You are no longer driving the bus.
Right. Some invisible internal force has completely grabbed the steering wheel.
It is incredibly disorienting when that happens.
It really is. And what's wild is that it's this universal, deeply biological human experience. I mean, we walk around projecting this image that we are these, highly rational, logical
Oh,
beings.
totally. Navigating the world purely on facts.
Right. But the reality under the hood is much messier. We are driven and often completely derailed by mechanisms we can't even see.
Which is exactly why we're zooming in on today's stack of sources.
Mhm.
We're looking at a deep dive into some fascinating pages from a book called BEA Hero, Decode Your Greatness.
It's a fantastic read.
It really is. Specifically, we're going to dissect what the author calls the second hero principle.
Yeah, and the core promise here is pretty staggering, honestly.
It claims that you can actually master the single strongest human force on Earth, which is your own emotions.
And it doesn't just offer, empty platitudes. It brings in insights from Elizabeth Gilbert, Bruce Lee, Tony Robbins.
The heavy hitters.
Yeah, and it layers them over some stark biological realities about how our brains actually construct reality.
Okay, let's unpack this because I think that biological reality is where this whole concept really finds its footing, right?
Exactly. It strips away that mystical, sort of intangible aura we usually give to our feelings.
It forces us to look at the raw mechanics.
Right. And the sources introduced this idea with a very specific phrase. Emotion is motion.
I want to pause right there because emotion is motion sounds super catchy, but what does that actually mean mechanically? Because I think for a lot of people listening, they already know the basic cognitive behavioral loop, right? The idea that our thoughts dictate our feelings.
Sure, that's not new.
Right. But this framing of motion feels like it's pointing to something way more physical.
It is entirely physical.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about emotion in this context, we aren't just talking about a static, abstract mood floating around in your mind.
Right.
We are talking about literal chemical motion in your body.
Wow. Okay.
When an emotion triggers, it is a physical cascade. Your heart rate changes, your breathing becomes shallow, cortisol or adrenaline just floods your bloodstream.
So it's an invisible force, but it has highly visible, tangible impacts on your physical state.
Exactly. And consequently, the quality of your entire life.
And to understand where that chemical motion originates, I mean, we have to look at the hardware we're running.
The way, really?
Yeah. The material points out that we are operating with a 2 million-year-old brain.
Right. And for 2 million years, the primary job of that brain has not been to make you happy.
Or fulfilled,
You
or
got it.
self-actualized.
Nope. Its singular job has been to keep you alive.
Just basic survival.
Exactly. So to do that, the brain operates as a relentless meaning-making machine.
Okay, a meaning-making machine.
Yeah, it constantly scans the environment and just slaps a label on every single stimulus. It is biologically coded to automatically create meaning out of absolutely everything that happens to you.
You know, I was trying to conceptualize this, and it feels less like an outdated operating system and more like having an incredibly overzealous, heavily armed security guard living inside your head.
That is a great analogy.
Right. This guard is looking at the security cameras 24/7. A delivery driver drops off a package, and the guard instantly screams, "Hostile intruder, we're under attack."
Yes.
The alarm bells ring, the chemical floodgates open. The meaning is assigned before you even have a chance to look at the screen yourself.
That is a perfect way to visualize it,
Really,
especially
yeah.
because of the sheer speed involved.
The speed is crazy.
It really is. The amygdala, which is the part of the brain sounding that alarm, processes information milliseconds faster than your prefrontal cortex.
And the prefrontal cortex is the logical, rational part of your brain.
Right. So the biological reflex happens before you're even consciously aware of it.
Wow.
But here's the critical mechanism. Whenever that ancient brain assigns a meaning, whether that meaning is actually true or completely false, your mind instantly produces an emotional tone.
That chemical motion to match it.
Exactly.
But this brings up a huge point of friction for me.
Okay, what is it?
If our brains are evolutionarily hardwired to do this automatically, at speeds faster than our conscious thought, aren't we basically fighting a losing battle against our own biology?
It definitely feels that way sometimes.
Right, because if the security guard is going to sound the alarm no matter what, how do we ever take the wheel back?
That is the million-dollar question. And it's exactly where the second hero principle shifts from just, observation to actual action. Yes, the brain reflexively looks for meaning. That is the hardware running its automatic 2 million-year-old program.
You can't fire the security guard.
You really can't. But what's fascinating here is the crucial distinction the text makes. While the brain suggests some meaning, your consciousness are the ultimate orchestrator of that meaning.
Oh, I see. So the security guard throws up a draft of what reality means, but I'm the editor. I hold the red pen.
Precisely. The automatic biological response is not the final word unless you passively allow it to be.
Which most of us do.
Yeah, a lot of the time. And if you don't step in as the orchestrator, you get caught in a brutal chain reaction.
The book uses a really striking quote for this, right?
Yes, there's a profoundly striking quote from Elizabeth Gilbert in our sources that illustrates this danger perfectly. She says, "Your emotions are the slaves to your thoughts, and you are the slave to your emotions."
Man, that is a chilling way to phrase it. Slave to your emotions.
It really hits home.
Because it highlights how trapped you are when you don't use that red pen. I mean, an event happens. The ancient brain rapid fires a meaning.
And again, maybe it's completely false.
Right, maybe it's just a misinterpretation, but that rapid meaning generates a thought. Your body physically reacts, making your emotions a slave to that thought.
Yeah.
And suddenly your entire day, your reactions, your relationships are just entirely enslaved by that initial unverified emotional cascade.
You're completely trapped in the loop. And the stakes here are not subtle. The progression is direct and linear.
How so?
The meaning you assign determines your emotions, and your emotions categorically determine the quality of your life.
Wow.
So if you are constantly allowing the overzealous security guard to assign fearful, catastrophic meanings to everyday events, you will live in a physical state of fear and catastrophe.
So what does this all mean for us? Knowing this is one thing, as we said, you listening probably already understand that you need to change your thoughts.
Right. Intellectually, we get it.
But the daily friction of actually doing this is immense. How do we break the cycle Elizabeth Gilbert is talking about?
Well, the material suggests this massive paradigm shift.
Yeah, it talks about moving from fearful beliefs to competent habits.
And from attributing blame to taking responsibility.
Moving from self-sabotage to self-conquest, which, by the way, self-conquest sounds like a literal war.
It kind of is. It's a war against your default settings.
Yeah.
And you don't win a war by just, thinking happy thoughts.
Obviously not.
You win it through what the sources refer to.
Yeah.
And they cite Tony Robbins here as cultivating emotional fitness.
Emotional fitness.
Yeah, I think the word fitness is the key mechanism here. You don't just wake up one day and decide to deadlift 500 pounds.
Right, you'd break your back. You have to build the muscle.
Exactly. Reshaping meaning isn't a one-time intellectual epiphany. It's a daily, grueling practice of catching the reflex and intentionally overriding it.
So what does a ref of emotional fitness actually look like in the wild? Because I keep trying to figure out how to visualize this in the moment, when the cortisol is already flooding my system.
Okay, to help visualize that exact moment, the sources present a central metaphor that I think is arguably the most powerful concept in the entire stack.
I love this part.
It frames the moment of friction as a pivotal choice you have to make. You must decide whether you are going to live your life as a thermometer or become a thermostat.
A thermometer versus a thermostat. Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of that.
So a thermometer has a very passive existence. It merely reflects external
It
circumstances.
tells you how hot or cold the room is.
Right. If a winter draft comes in, the thermometer's mercury drops. It just reacts.
Got it.
A thermostat, on the other hand, has a completely different function. It has a sensor, yes, but it also has a switch.
Ah, the switch.
Exactly. It sets a desired temperature, and it actively dictates the environment to maintain that state, regardless of what the weather outside is doing.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because it takes the abstract idea of, orchestrating meaning and gives it teeth. Let's make this incredibly real for the listener.
Okay, give me a scenario.
A classic modern anxiety trigger. You get a cryptic one-word text message from a good friend, just the word fine with a period.
Oh, the dreaded punctuated fine.
It,
That's brutal.
It's the worst. It's the perfect ambiguous stimulus for the ancient brain to freak out over.
Oh, absolutely.
So if I'm operating as a thermometer, the event happens. My 2 million-year-old brain immediately reads that text. The security guard screams, "They hate us. The friendship is over."
And you instantly panic.
Right. I match the perceived absolute zero coldness of that text message. My internal temperature just plummets. I am reacting entirely to the external stimulus.
You absorb the external climate, and your internal state became a slave to it, just like the Gilbert quote.
Yeah.
You didn't orchestrate anything. You just let the hardware run its default catastrophe program.
But if I've been building my emotional fitness, and I choose to operate as a thermostat, the mechanics are totally different.
Walk me through it.
I read the same exact text message. The security guard still yells because, like you said, I can't stop the biological reflex.
Right, the alarm still goes off.
But I pause. I pull out my red pen. I consciously decide to maintain my internal temperature at a warm 72 degrees.
Yes.
I step in and assign a different meaning. I say to myself, my friend is probably just slammed at work right now. They aren't angry at me. I set the temperature.
You refuse to let a tiny, ambiguous external event hijack your internal climate.
Exactly.
And that pause, that moment where you hear the security guard, but choose not to hit the panic button, that is a rep of emotional fitness.
That's the heavy lifting.
That is what self-conquest looks like in practice. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this metaphor is the absolute core of taking personal responsibility.
How so?
Is the dividing line between being a victim of your circumstances and an active creator of your reality.
Right, because a thermometer blames the room for being cold. A thermostat takes responsibility for warming it up. It completely reframes the idea of blame.
Exactly. When you act as a thermometer, you're inherently attributing blame outward.
Like, my boss made me angry.
Or, the traffic ruined my morning. That text message gave me anxiety.
You're just surrendering your emotional autonomy to the chaotic, unpredictable outside world.
Yes. Becoming a thermostat means realizing that while you cannot control the traffic, or the boss, or the text message, you are 100% responsible for the meaning you assign to them.
And therefore, the emotional chemistry you generate in your own body.
Spot on.
But this is where the rubber really meets the road, right?
Right.
Because reading about being a thermostat is one thing.
Sure.
Listening to us talk about it makes perfect logical sense. But actually overriding that biological cortisol dump when someone cuts you off in traffic, that is brutal.
Which is exactly why the author of BEA Hero doesn't just present this as some philosophical theory. The source material gives very strict, uncompromising instructions on how to actually consume the information.
Oh, yeah. It explicitly states that this is not passive reading.
No, you have to treat the book as a literal workbook and a manual.
I was looking at the source pages we received, and it genuinely forces you to interact.
It does.
It's not just like blank margins for taking notes. There's literally a section that forces you to confront your own default settings.
With a multiple choice key and everything.
Yeah. It essentially says, here is a scenario. Do you usually react like A, B, or C? It forces you to audit your own reactions. It translates the internal, invisible process of meaning-making into an external, tangible exercise.
It demands that you practice the techniques. You have to review your habitual responses, jot down where your security guard is overly sensitive, and actively map out how you'll reassign meaning in the future.
So it emphasizes that building emotional fitness requires repetition and friction.
Definitely. And right alongside these strict workbook instructions, the text features this great quote from Bruce Lee.
Oh, I love this quote.
He says, "The successful warrior is the average man with laser-like focus."
Which I think takes so much pressure off. You don't need to be born a Zen master or a superhero to achieve this self-conquest.
No, not at all.
You just need to be a regular, average person who applies intense, laser-like focus to these daily emotional reps.
It's very empowering framing. But the sources then add a layer to this practice that completely shifts the paradigm again.
Oh boy, here we go.
It insists that you cannot just do this workbook in isolation. It states that you must involve others, discuss what you're learning, and actively apply these concepts through human synergy.
Okay, I have to push back hard on this shift because frankly, it feels like a massive contradiction to me.
Really? How so?
Think about it. If this entire deep dive, this whole second hero principle has been about taking absolute responsibility for my own internal state,
Right.
building my own emotional fitness, and insulating my internal thermostat from the coldness of the outside world, why on earth would the next step be to immediately involve other people?
I see what you mean.
Doesn't focusing on synergy and human connection just open the door to let the chaotic external world right back in to mess with my temperature?
That is a completely valid challenge. And this raises an important question because it highlights a really beautiful paradox in the mechanics of human emotion.
Okay, explain the paradox.
The text explicitly states that greatness seldom arises from individual efforts alone. It points out that our power as a species, the whole reason we sit atop the food chain, isn't just our isolated individual brains.
It's not just the hardware.
Right. It is our biological capacity for social co-regulation. It's our ability to communicate, connect, foster trust, and learn from one another.
But how does that square with the thermostat metaphor? If I'm supposed to be self-reliant, why do I need social co-regulation?
Well, think about the biological mechanism of mirror neurons. We are deeply social animals, and our nervous systems are literally designed to read and sync with the nervous systems of the people around us.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if you're sitting in a room full of thermometers, people who are just blindly reacting, panicking, projecting their unedited emotional chemistry onto everyone else, the ambient temperature of that room is chaotic and exhausting.
It's just a room full of people triggering each other's security guards.
Exactly. But if you have done the grueling internal workbook reps to become a thermostat, you don't just regulate your own temperature.
Oh, wow.
Your grounded, regulated nervous system actually begins to anchor the people around you. You change the ambient temperature.
So true emotional fitness isn't tested by sitting quietly in an empty, perfectly zen room?
No, not at all.
Oh.
It is tested, refined, and strengthened in the friction of actual human connection.
So the mastery isn't about isolating yourself so you never get triggered. It's about building the internal capacity so that when you do engage with the messy, unpredictable human world, you can actually connect rather than just react.
You need that laser-like focus of Bruce Lee's average warrior to master your own internal state, yes. But you need human connection to harness that mastery into actual greatness.
I see.
The internal control gives you the stable foundation, but the synergy gives you the impact. A room full of regulated thermostats is where genuine trust, shared dreaming, and profound collaboration can actually happen.
It's almost like you have to get your own house in order and set your own thermostat so that when you finally invite people in, they aren't freezing to death.
Exactly.
You can actually foster an environment where something meaningful can be built.
And that shared environment is how we harness the power that actually shapes the future. It's the ultimate expression of the second hero principle.
This has been an incredibly dense, actionable journey today. For everyone listening, let's quickly retrace the mechanics of what we just uncovered.
Good idea.
We started by looking under the hood and recognizing that our 2 million-year-old brains, complete with that overzealous security guard, are hardwired to rapidly assign meaning to everything.
Every little thing.
And that meaning triggers a physical chemical cascade because emotion is literal motion in the body.
Which leads right into the danger of the chain reaction we discussed.
Right. To break the cycle of being slaves to our emotions, to stop the thought from becoming a chemical prison, we have to recognize that we hold the red pen.
We are the ultimate orchestrators of that meaning.
Yes. We have to make the conscious, difficult choice to stop living as a reacting, blame-shifting thermometer and do the reps to become a thermostat that sets its own internal climate.
Beautifully said.
And finally, we don't do this just to be an isolated island of calm. We apply that laser-like focus so we can actually engage with others, co-regulate, and achieve true synergy.
It is a profound, deeply mechanical framework for personal transformation. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final lingering thought.
Oh, I'm ready.
It's something that stems from a really fascinating tension between two of the voices we looked at today.
Lay it on us.
So, on one hand, we have Elizabeth Gilbert's very stark warning that we can easily become slaves to our emotions if we aren't careful.
Right.
But on the other hand, the sources feature a quote from Tony Robbins that frames this entirely differently. He says, "The gift of emotion is sacred. It is what makes us human."
A sacred gift versus a cruel master. That is a massive spectrum.
It really is.
Yeah.
So consider this. If the act of assigning meaning is a rapid biological survival reflex from 2 million years ago,
Yeah.
and actively reassigning that meaning is the key to our emotional freedom,
Mm-hmm.
could our greatest, most advanced human superpower actually be the ability to temporarily suspend meaning altogether?
Wow.
What if, the next time something unexpected happens, a cryptic text message, a sudden change in plans, maybe a harsh piece of feedback, instead of instantly labeling it good or bad, you practice just observing the event for a few seconds?
Just watching it happen.
Yeah. What if you used your conscious mind not to assign a better meaning, but to just hold the space empty before deciding what it means at all? What if true emotional fitness starts with the power of the pause?
Now that is something to seriously chew on. Suspending the meaning-making machine entirely, even just for a single breath, to see what happens to the temperature in the room. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into decoding your own greatness. We'll be back soon to unpack another stack of sources.